You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Good morning. Combat Radio appearances at UCLA, USC, University of Santa Barbara, UNLV in Vegas, and San Diego State coming up this month and next. You can go to combatradionow.com to find information on all of those. You can also join us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram so we look cool, Instagram/Combat Radio. If you want to interact with the show live, you can get us on Twitter. We love to hear from you. Keep it civil if possible. Combat Radio bobblehead on the way this Christmas, along with Combat Radio's Christmas Breakfast for Homeless Children December 7th. If you want to get involved in that, go to the website, figure out how you can donate, volunteer, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great cause, and this year we'll be doing somewhere between 400 and 500 children from Lutheran Family Services whose housing burned down on Van Nuys last week. It was the Voyager Motel, housed most of them, and it's gone. So they could use all the help they can get. Prior to that will be Halloween, and Combat Radio agents will be going into Salem, Massachusetts, Sleepy Hollow, New York, Amityville, New York, a couple of other crazy places for some live broadcasts and special YouTube feed. Go to the new Combat Radio channel, Combat Radio Images, to catch all of that. The craziness begins September 20th. Joining us is my co-host, manager extraordinaire, the guy behind such acts as Robbie Krieger, The Doors, The Cult, Fuel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tom Vitorino, how are you?
I need a drum roll or something. Yeah, I like that. You know, I think I just like to be referred to now as like entertainment mogul. You don't have to list my...
EM? Should we just call you EM,
EM
Tom?
would be good.
Entertainment mogul. Actually, and joining us is one of our favorite Combat Radio veterans, a woman who always gets involved with every charity
looking lovely
stunt. Yes, looking quite lovely this morning. A very generous, dynamic talent. Ashley Palmer, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
You are in a new movie, A Strange Brand of Happy. People know you from Paranormal Activity, Desperate Housewives, et cetera, and we'll get to the movie in a minute because there's some good news on that front. And then joining us, actually, is a guy I used to deliver mail to when I was in the Warner Brothers mailroom. Top flight executive, cutthroat individual before he became a producer. Good friend of mine, a guy I respect quite a bit and have known probably a decade and a half now, Mr. Bill Daly. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm happy to be here in the control room.
Yes, in the control room.
Well, I've got a headset on, and I feel like I'm...
You look like you belong, and I want
very official.
Well, I feel like I'm in an airline control tower.
And to prove what a picture you...
United 27, increased to 7.
Exactly.
That's good.
To prove what a producer you are, you're one of the few guys who actually drops me note by note or line-by-line notes on the previous show.
Oh, yeah.
Say a couple of issues on the last broadcast, Ethan. Number one, who is the idiot that doesn't like soccer?
Right. And golf.
That's me.
And that's Tom.
Yeah.
Sitting next to you, the idiot.
But, or something like a...
I think you're outnumbered,
and
actually.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's very, very, very production-like.
Well, there was a golf person, too, so that's why I came dressed for golf today.
I noticed. Matching
Even
pink and... pink shirt and pink socks, and yeah, you're ready to rock.
He's been in my closet.
We were joking about, we were talking about the life of independent producing animals such as yourself, and you said, you know, you preferred working on projects you liked versus, say, Jonah Hex, which you have some experience with when you're at Warner Brothers. But I don't know if you want to get right into the gossip now. But
I actually like Jonah Hex. I liked it.
Really?
Wait, Bill's writing me another note. Really? Who is this guy sitting next to me who like Jonah Hex?
I think I described him as an idiot or a moron, I think.
Well, let's not go that road because he's not going to know you're kidding. But you know what? He refers to everyone in an endearing fashion as an idiot or moron. I used to deliver mail to his office and he'd be like, who is the moron that gave me my neighbor's mail and gave my neighbor my mail? That would be Ethan.
I don't think so. I don't think I ever made that complaint.
Well, I remember actually saying, I'm going to make a movie here when I was ramping up to do an independent film. And I said, I'm putting you in it as a police chief because you have that demeanor, at least in my assessment. And you were like, yeah, man, I'd be happy to do it,
yeah,
sure.
I'll do that. Well, I'm really sorry that picture didn't get done. And I would have liked to have worked with Mark Todd.
Yeah, because he passed away.
And then and I thought your idea to have Christopher Walken as... anger management
counselor. Yeah. Genius. See, this is why Warner Brothers got rid of me, though. These ideas right here, you know.
I thought that was brilliant, and the thing is, the dialogue was written in such a way that I could hear his voice.
Yeah. That's the one compliment I will walk away from that whole experience from is every actor that looked at it goes, man, this is like I'm saying this.
Yeah.
You know, but I do appreciate the compliment. I mean, I do.
And it was homage to the 70s. Remember, I grew sideburns.
I know you were becoming the part. It was great. I remember when I said, I think Bill Daly will play this part, and everyone's like, all the guys in the mailroom like, oh, you're out of your mind. You're gonna get fired asking him to do this. This is crazy. He's big time. And I came back and I'm like, he says he's good. He says he's in. He's doing it. And they're like, damn you, Dettenmeyer.
Well, listen, I always try to encourage people that wanted to do. Yeah, we had before, you remember Polly Cohen?
Yeah.
Was president of Warner Independent Pictures. She started there as an intern.
Right.
And I remember she had some sort of, or not an intern, but like a management trainee. It's hard to tell the difference between them all. But she was at USC, or I think she might have been like in the Ray Stark program or something. And she had some project she was trying to float. I offered to help her. She never.
Now I know why the movie industry is in trouble. They use male people and interns to actually run the companies.
No. We would have changed. Well, Polly Cohen went on to helm the Harry Potter films. I remember that was her big assignment when I started there.
Yeah, she did. She was the creative exec on those, and then she was tapped to take over for when
you know what?
Gill left Warner Independent.
Where's Polly Cohen now? Is she still there?
She has. She probably has. She does have a company. She sends me things on LinkedIn. I'm probably one of a million people she sends them to. I know she's up to stuff, but I don't follow her.
I've got a guy you should meet. Speaking of the Ray Stark program at USC, producer Larry Turman, who did everything from The Graduate to The Thing. I'm in a dialogue. He wanted to get on this show this month, and he handles that program. But really? I've got something I'll talk to you about where he's concerned after the show.
I want to let you know something. I'm going on the break, and I'm going to get the valet. I'm going to bring him up here to run the station.
Is there a valet? I pulled in there.
Can we do that?
He's a hard ass.
Sort of do the same model as Warner's used?
No, but it's not really the same model as Warner. I mean, honestly, the people that make some of the terrible decisions over there will tell you they've been in the business for decades. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought I was a moron for not liking soccer.
Well, that's true too, but that's another matter altogether.
I don't know about that anymore. But I am going to get the valet, and he's going to come up here and he's going to do a segment.
We don't want the valet up here, and nor is the valet going to respond to your demands to be a part of the show. The valet is very tough.
He's the thing.
Tougher than all of us.
But if you get an internship or if you're in a Ray Stark program or something like that at any of the studios, believe me, they're going to vet you.
Yeah.
And if ideas come from everywhere, and the movie business I've always likened to baseball. Everybody plays baseball when they're kids. They all think they can do it, and sometimes they can't.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the movies. You take your film classes and all that, you think you can do it, and Jesus.
I agree with you, because the film industry is driven by sensibilities, and people that have a sense for something that may work or be able to make it work or have the personality to make it work, those are the people that ultimately ride out. I mean, we had some characters at Warner Brothers in our day. Building 81 was loaded with you couldn't even bake a reality show on that building. That was the director's producer's building. And in it was Joel Schumacher, crazy man that destroyed the Batman franchise, only to have it come back stronger. Yeah. Best thing that ever happened for Christopher Nolan is he had no act to follow. And then, who else was in that building? Wolfgang Peterson was in there for a while. John Milius, who was kind of the guy that got me out of the mailroom.
David Heyman from the Harry Potter producer.
Clint Eastwood
was in there. Clint, yeah.
And then at the end of the hall was that guy who ran Sony for a while, ran it into the ground. Who was that fucking executive? He had a hand in Purple Rain and everything from...
John Peters?
No, not John Peters. John Peters did have a building next to it, but...
Yeah, he had the building that I think Zack Snyder's in now.
Yeah, God, I don't know I cannot... Anyway, there was a guy there.
Not Mark Canton.
Mark Canton, yeah.
Okay.
Mark
Canton. He was head of production when I started at Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Bonfire of the Vanities.
And he got a nice...
thing I came in on was
got a nice exit deal, right, Mark? We're going to set you up over here.
Well, that's because...
you fail upwards in this town.
Well, Peter Guber and John Peters had a really good relationship with him. The Sony thing dropped into their lap.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could smell blood in the water. I don't exactly know what the politics were at the time, but I know that they had a really good relationship with him and thought that he was their guy to take over running. Because they were independent producers; they weren't guys who were running studios.
Right. I will take you through a moment at the studio that you're going to think is totally fit right out of Entourage, and this is why Entourage was so successful. I remember being there, and Lorenzo de Bonaventura was an executive, top guy, brought in The Matrix. And he decides, does Training Day, which wasn't a film I was a big fan of, but it was successful. Decides to go to New York and make a Shakespearean siege on the studio to get the two heads of the studio, Alan Horn and Simmel, out. Right? No, Simmel was already gone.
No, that's not what it was.
What was it?
It was. It's funny how history sort of.
Because he came back and got himself.
Well, it's come back. But the whole what happened was there was a project we were developing. It was the Batman and Superman project that they're doing now.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And what they'd done was they had contracted out for scripts. They had this Batman Superman script. They contracted out for a standalone Batman and a standalone Superman. And so Wolfgang Petersen was set to direct. There were a lot of sort of dominoes on the table at the time. Wolfgang Petersen was set to direct it, even though he had been developing Troy. And Brad Pitt was in on Troy. So when they approached Wolfgang about taking over this Batman Superman project, he was all for it. Thing is, Wolfgang's a really good traffic cop. You need a good traffic cop to direct a movie, a big studio movie like that. You really need somebody that has a big personality. So he was set to do that, and they do a weekend read. The script comes in, they send it out to everybody, they read it over the weekend. Well, the individual Batman script and the individual Superman script were better than this Batman versus Superman script. So Alan Horn put the brakes on it. Lorenzo still wanted to march forward with it. He went to New York. He went over Alan and Barry's head, went to Dick Parsons, the head of Time Warner at the time, and that's something that's really frowned on in the culture there. So he ended up getting his own head cut off. We did the Batman picture. Actually got finished first because Chris Nolan jumped on it and did a fabulous job. It was hard for us to find. We had a million different directors on the Superman project. McGee was on there for a time. Tim Burton was on there for a time. It ended up being Bryan Singer. We shot it in Australia. I'm not a big fan of that film. It's a much maligned film. But if you go into Box Office Mojo, I challenge you, go into Box Office Mojo. That movie made more than the Batman movie that Nolan made.
Did it?
Honest to God. At the end of the day, it made more.
I always liked Lorenzo de Bonaventura.
Me too.
I liked him a lot, and I honestly thought he was a bit of a genius in picking and finding projects. As he's proven now that he's gone, he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
He's done some great stuff. I really liked Lorenzo, and Jeff Robinoff took over for a lot of things happened when Lorenzo left. I mean, a lot of dominoes sort of rearranged themselves on the table. So the Wolfgang then, since he had Batman, Superman yanked out from under him, he immediately goes back onto Troy. Brad Pitt had aligned himself with The Fountain, and he said, well, why am I working? And it was being done as a low-budget thing, shooting in Australia. We built the sets already.
For The Fountain?
For The Fountain. Brad said, what am I doing down here making a quarter of what I usually make when I can get the full fee on Troy? He jumped off The Fountain, went to Troy. I think Troy's a fabulous movie. That's one of the good happy endings for that whole thing.
My buddy's in it, actually. Taylor Mang's got a part in that. He's the big, robo fighter. Anyway, was it strictly financial that he jumped from The Fountain to Troy? Because they were making it a bit of a mystery in the trades.
No, he was. I'm sure it was part of it. I'm sure that had something to do with it. But Achilles was being developed with Brad in mind, and Brad, you should have seen, he was such a stud. He was working out every day. I mean, he really built himself into this Greek fighter. And everybody had dedicated a good chunk of their life to doing this, and suddenly it goes off the table and then comes back on. So, a lot of people were scrambling.
Troy, you're talking about Troy.
Troy.
And your final assessments on Troy when it's all said? Did you like it?
The best my favorite version of Troy was the original director's cut that Wolfgang delivered. It was too long, too violent. We didn't want to get all the studios are pretty sensitive to R ratings because you're cutting out a huge part of the demographic that they're going for. I mean, they don't make movies for guys with the color hair I have. Okay, white. You guys can't see it; it's white.
But isn't it true you bleach your hair white to look more sophisticated?
You know what? My wife used to beg me to dye my hair. I did it a few times because my hair was blonde. See, the hair on my arms is still blonde. My hair was blonde. My golden locks turned silver. My wife used to beg me all the time because she was tired of going around the shopping mall with somebody who looked like a grandfather. And then, but now she goes, no, don't do that, because I'm easier to find now because it shines under the lights.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to derail you. You have a story about Troy you were on, and I derailed you.
No, I loved it. Well, the thing is, that was my favorite version. But if you're looking for the best version of it, then you get the new Blu. Well, it's not new, but the Blu-ray. They did the latest, whatever the latest Blu-ray is, which they probably have branded as a director's cut. It's not really. It's sort of Wolfgang going back, reinstituting some of the stuff that was in his director's cut, and then with a year or two of wisdom in his pocket, was able to go in and improve some of the stuff. But that's that was almost 10 years ago. I still have fond memories of even the fights that I had with Wolfgang over in London. But
Wolfgang's not one to be too diplomatic at times.
They used to give me a pretty wide berth. I was I don't know why. I'm not an imposing figure by any stretch of the imagination, but I genuinely enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the process of filmmaking.
Yeah, I'm intimidated too. That's why I wanted you to be the police chief years ago on a project that I bet Lorenzo would have made.
You know what? He may still make it.
He may still make it, actually.
You should approach him.
It's the pink socks that are getting me.
It always crushes me when people like you make that comment, like, "Oh, that was a great script." That always kills me because you don't have a lot of great scripts in your wheelhouse, and when you have one that people always say, "Oh, that should have made a great movie."
Yeah, it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how many bad scripts actually get made into movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're all living in that world.
And then it's been my experience too that the movie ends up being less than what the script was. A couple times though we had fabulous scripts where the movie actually ended up being better than the script. Okay, not to diminish the script in any way. Like Dave, you remember Dave?
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver, Kevin Kline.
Right.
That was, I think Gary Ross wrote that. It was one of the best scripts I had read up to that time, and I was just so gung ho on this movie. The script was so good. But the movie's better than the script was. I mean, the movie, Ivan Reitman did a great job. Great casting in it. They got the right cameos. They were able to get Tip O'Neill and a bunch of Washington guys to do cameos and stuff in it. It was great.
How was Reitman to work with?
He's, I've done a couple of, he did Space Jam and he did Father's Day. I've worked with him on those 3 projects. He's not my favorite person in the world. He's not. He doesn't even come close to being the worst. He's.
Who is the worst? Different. Now that you mention it, who's the worst guy?
Spike Lee.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people say he's difficult. Now, why? What do you suppose it is about him that makes him Spike Lee?
I don't know. I really don't know, but I did Malcolm X with him. I went on an immediate, and it didn't even strike me at first. The mission is get the job done, okay? And I don't care whether I get along with people or not. The mission is really to get the job done. But then he wrote a book or an article. He wrote something about his experience on Malcolm X, and we had given him absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. Absolutely everything on that project. We bought out the bond. The bond company was on his butt. We bought the bond out, pulled them off him and all that, and then all he could do was badmouth us after. And he was contracted to make a movie of a certain length, and that thing was longer than JFK. Malcolm X was. And so I was really offended by that. So I immediately did a complete boycott of Spike Lee. I have not seen any of his films since. I pass him over when I see him in the news. He used to do, he may still do Nike commercials. I don't buy Nike products. You don't see Nike on me. You remember that Taco Bell across the street from?
Well, so you have a deep affection for Spike Lee.
He was doing their commercials. I have not gone into a Taco Bell since.
Most of us on that note, though, have not gone into a Taco Bell, Bill. You're not really special where the Taco Bell boycott is concerned. Ever since we knew that they were the lawsuit about it not being meat and the employee licking all the shells row by row.
The thing is, I don't even pay attention to them, and it's like I don't mean to. It's not my intention to put these other businesses out of business. They certainly don't need mine. But I'm not in the business of supporting people I can't stand. So that's where I stand with Spike Lee.
No, I've heard that actually quite a bit. I personally have never worked with him, but for some reason he's on the top of that list for a lot of people. I don't know why. Well, you know why. I don't know why.
No, I only know my own experience, which was rather bitter.
Yeah.
You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.